This is the boss. This is, for me, how guitars, the whole history of guitar just kind of started. Because this is a 1952 Fender Esquire. The very beginning of the Fender history. Look at this. When you see all these beat up guitars, all these necks done by all these different companies, this is what you're hoping to get. This is literally 70 years. But this is what, Bruce Springsteen played. But for me, like by comparison to the Les Paul, this is basically a piece of wood with a single coil on it. Like that's it. And it's about as just simple as you get. It's 100% pure tone. Look at the back of that neck. For me, if I see a 70-year-old guitar, I don't want to see like the mold underneath the pick guard. Like that bums me out, like to be honest with you. But like where I have like my arm and all, like you're not scared to play this. Like you see this, like right here, it's like soft. It's like underneath a stingray's stomach. You're like, whoa, it's so nice to put your arm here and then you just, it feels like it feels like home. Down here, you're like, oh, this guy was playing cowboy chords for years. It's just that super chunky, fat, beautiful Telecaster neck that predates the Telecaster. One pickup, the Esquire. This is about as cool as a Fender vintage instrument gets, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just honored to be able to hold this thing. 59. This thing needs to be fucking. This is the holy grail. I grew up thinking that the 1959 Les Paul was the coolest Gibson. And then about 20 plus years ago, my friend said, hey, I have an opportunity to go to Gruhn's Guitars and I think I'm gonna buy this 1959 Tobacco ES335 Dot. And he brought this back. And according to George Gruhn, and I agree with George Gruhn, this is one of the best conditioned 335s that he's ever had come through his shop. And I have to say, so first and foremost, look at these tuners, okay? Not only are they solid, they start to, I'm gonna take another set. Here's some 1959 tuners right here, okay? This is what they tend to look like, okay? Okay, this is what they tend to look like. This yellowy, these are still hard. They still got some fat and potatoes on it. This is like, I kept them in my case. If I didn't know from George Gruhn that these were original, I would think that these were replaced, but they are not. So where a lot of people say, when you're buying a house, location. With a guitar like this, it's condition. And the fact is, other than a little schmutz over here, okay? There's not a belt buckle mark on this. There's almost no checking. Like literally none. There's like one or two small lines in the nitro up here. Other than that, this thing is just minty mint. And right here, you have two absolutely beautiful PAF humbuckers. This is the best tone in the world, as far as I'm concerned. People are like, why aren't you plugging it in? Because I have too many guitars to go through right now. This 1959 ES335 with original PAFs, in fact, original everything. You don't get better than this. You might get different, you might get something that's equally awesome. But you don't get better than a 1959 ES335. So here's how I'm gonna put it to you. You wanna know about fucking tone? Just spend $100 grand on a 1959 ES335, and if you sound like shit, it's you! It's you! But if you're awesome, and you have great tone, and you feel like you've been limited by your LTD, fine! Go buy yourself a $100,000 Gibson ES335 from 1959 and see if you sound better. The sad part is, I don't sound any better. But I feel better, and that's what counts. Oh, hey, how you doing? What do these two guitars have in common? Let's compare. Both are totally fucking wacky. Let's start off with the older lady. This is one of the rarest guitars to bear the Epiphone name. This is the 1961 Epiphone Custom Crestwood. And in 1960, this guitar had just dot inlays. But in 61, they said, hey, let's put these crazy mother of pearl dead mollusk inlays, these oval inlays that are very unusual, and this strange clear and white pick guard. What this guitar was, it was supposed to be the kind of Epiphone equivalent to the SG, or the solid guitar. So when basically the 1961, 62, and 63 Les Paul Custom came out, this was kind of the equivalent to what that was supposed to be. And this had the added vibrato on the bottom, a very, very cool piece of rosewood with the Epiphone crest on it, along with this pick guard that was added from the previous year, and two mini PAF humbuckers. That's right, mini PAFs from the golden era of Gibson in this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Epiphone Crestwood. So why would I be holding this at the same time as this? If you looked at this cool tailpiece, you'd know it is the 1969 Gibson Gold Crest. And I gotta tell you, when I talked to a Gibson representative in a Guitar Center maybe about 10 years ago, and I was telling him about this guitar, he was trying to tell me it never existed. And that's because almost nobody knows about this guitar, other than if you go onto those like YouTube, the 10 weirdest Gibsons, and blah, 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 blah. So one night I was like up late on the interweb, as I oftentimes am. And I was like, wait a minute. There's an ES-looking guitar from Gibson from the 60s made of fucking Brazilian rosewood. Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, look at that. This guitar is Brazilian rosewood veneer. You have Brazilian rosewood on the top, on the back, and you have this crazy three-piece neck. You have the open book headstock shape with this beautiful inlay. Big giant blocks. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna put this over here. As much as I want to think that this is the coolest ES guitar ever, it is not an ES guitar. It is the Gibson Gold Crest. Not to be confused with the first Crest, where they made like 5 or 6 of them that are like gajillions of dollars. That's not this, but this is pretty freaking rare. In fact, they only made 172 Gibson Crests total. They made them in gold and in silver. And the first year, which this is, they only made 56. So there's probably about 20 to 25 of these things that were ever made, nevertheless still exist. But where this kind of looks like a really fancy ES355, it's not. It's kind of stupid, actually. And it bums me out because if you notice, the neck hits at the 15th fret instead of the 19th fret, which makes basically doing any arch enemy style sweep arpeggios virtually impossible. And like the ES330, and as I've discovered the 325, it's pretty much completely hollow. But because of these floating mini humbucker things, these things are prone to feedback. They're really hard to play. So they're freaking rare and weird and nobody sees them anymore. But only 56 made in 1969. It actually sold pretty well considering it was a very expensive guitar at the time. By the next year, obviously, there's 172. There's like 120 of them made. So almost, there was more than two times made in 1970. So this is the rarer 1969 gold version. It sounds like silliness. It's cool for what it is. It's mini floating humbuckers, but like as you can see, it's just this really crazy design. They decided to go, oh, we're gonna give you less space up here, and we're gonna make it prone to feedback, but it's cool. It's Brazilian rosewood with crazy marquetry. It's gold hardware. It's a beautiful Brazilian rosewood fretboard with block inlays. It's just dumb. So there's that. So unlike the Epiphone Crestwood, which is an absolutely fantastic, amazing tone machine, this thing is just silliness, but equally weird and very rare. 2 rare birds that start off with Crest. These are 2 of my all-time favorite Gibson acoustics. And anyone that knows me knows I like rare, and I like weird, and I like provenance, and I like special. This guitar is such a beautiful guitar, and it represents such a wonderful time in Gibson. This was the creme de la creme in 1939, the Gibson Super 400. Now, I know some of you nerdy Gibson guys are like, they didn't make a cherry sunburst Gibson Super 400 in 1930. You're right! Roy Clark. Hee-haw. One of the greatest chicken-picking, fast as fuck, crazy, ridiculous TV personalities that actually played incredible guitar. Sent this back to Gibson. I said, I want it to be cherry sunburst. This is Roy Clark's original 1939 Super 400. In one-of-a-kind, factory refinished cherry sunburst. Unbelievable. This guitar here, I put this back. Oh, you're so beautiful. Now, you're gonna love or hate this, but I love it because this is the only Gibson J-200 Florentine cutaway made by Gibson. It's a 1962 King of the Flat Tops factory Florentine J-200. And this one is beautifully aged. As you can see, you have like a nice little rub off to let people know, oh, my neck is comfortable. People have played me. It's got all the nice checking on the top, but this is just a beautiful. I don't even want to play it. I'm just telling you. For me, the reason I got this guitar is just because it's the only one, and I'm a big fan of the only one. And when I've posted this before, like, you know, pictures and groups and all that, some people are like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, or what sacrilege? I don't care what you think, because like Highlander, there can only be one.
Why don't you smash that subscribe button already?